with people. There's a lot of love in this room. And there's a lot of love in this conference. And apparently there really is a lot of love for Hank. Because right here on this podium it says for Hank. And there are... So let's just forget the topic today and just chant the name Hank for a good deal of time. My name is Andrew Slack. I'm going to give you... I appreciate the fact that you like that I can say my name. Even like my kindergarten teacher wasn't proud of that. So, very quick background on me is that I am co-founder and executive director of something called the Harry Potter Alliance. And I want to thank you all for supporting the Harry Potter Alliance by being here, because part of the funds you're helping with us. You're helping us. The topic today of our discussion with these incredible panelists is, can fandom change the world? I will give you a spoiler. The answer is yes. I oftentimes say, fantasy is not an escape from our world, but an invitation to go deeper into it. Going back to the year 1990, in Jonathan Larson's Tick, Tick, Boom, he concludes it with a question. What does it take to wake up a generation? How can we make someone take off and fly? If we can't wake up and shake up the nation, we'll eat the dust of the world, wondering why. Okay, so, we don't want to leave the dust of the world wondering why. We want to change the world. We want to understand that and understand how to do that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. Years later, after Jonathan Larson composed and created Wrench, where we have the man who created the character Mark Cohen on this panel. And Mark Cohen being the voice for Jonathan Larson's dream of that very statement about waking up a generation, to trying to build a community that values the arts, that values creativity, that values being bohemian, being abnormal, and not being perfectly normal. Thank you very much. Redheads created an incredible community of fandom. Amongst their most prominent was a young woman named Melissa Nelly, who went on to help build what is this incredible fandom today. And this incredible fandom today has helped to build other fandoms. And all of these different fandoms have been doing amazing things. They are not all represented on this panel. But what we are doing together, as social media grows, and as the power of story grows, the ability to tell your own story on the internet and popular culture, is the ability for us to write the change that Jonathan Larson asked us to create in waking up not just one generation, but all generations in what Albus Dumbledore referred to as dark and difficult times. So we're going to do that through the power of community and love. This is a new era. We are the ones writing that, as fan activists, as educators. So we're going to hear from our panelists now on their perspective in terms of where they're coming from. And we'll start to our right with Mr. Anthony Rapp. Hello.
So back in the early 90s, I had the incredible good fortune of meeting a man named Larry Kramer, who I don't know if the youngsters, I'm telling you to Google him and learn about him. Most recently, you might have seen him on TV a couple years ago at the Tonys. He finally won a Tony Award for his play Normal Heart for The Revival. But the reason I was telling you this is that he was one of the absolutely most important and vital voices of the early days of the gay community's response to the AIDS epidemic, and as well as before that being one of the pioneers of gay rights in general. So it was a very formative age. I met him, I was in my early 20s myself, and that's, being around him and working with him was what encouraged me to come out publicly, and then being a part of Rent was, then became the perfect platform to be able to talk that much more openly and directly to young people about gay, lesbian issues, which was the main reason I did come out publicly, was for young people. And then, you know, so to all these years later, to witness all the things that have happened with It Gets Better and so many things, it's been amazing. But that's the kind of activism that I've been a part of. That's been, you know, Andrew had asked us to talk about, you know, where we come from with that. So it was something that I had started before Rent, but Rent was the natural, it gave me the incredible platform, the opportunity to take that even further.
Thank you. Is somebody filming this?
Oh, everybody's filming.
Yeah. Please film this, because this is awesome. Okay. Lauren?
Yeah, my name is Lauren, as Andrew said. I'm Lauren Garrett. I'm the digital content strategist for the Harry Potter Alliance. For those of you who don't know the Harry Potter Alliance, we are a Dumbledore's army for our world. Dumbledore's army? No? Basically, we saw all the amazing things the Harry Potter fan community is making: fan fiction, fan art, Quidditch, we have our own genre of music, we have our own sandwiches. But if Harry Potter were in our world and he was seeing the injustices here, he would do something about it. So that's what we're doing in Harry's name. We've built libraries all around the world. We sent 5 cargo planes to Haiti. We helped pass American Colony in Maine and Rhode Island and the DREAM Act in Maryland. We have funded protection for thousands of civilians under Darfur and Burma. We have over 130 chapters on 5 continents. We have a volunteer staff of 40. We've been written about in every major news publication. J.K. Rowling praised us in Time magazine. So we have some J.K. Rowling.
I'm sorry, who's that?
She's kind of like Jonathan Larson.
Oh, okay, cool.
Research that has been done on us has shown that young people who are civically engaged usually come from politically active families. But most of our members, people who participate in the Harry Potter Alliance, are usually the first people in their families to be politically or civically engaged. Which is a really cool thing. We're really getting people excited to go out there and do things based on Harry Potter. But given all of that we've done, we're now expanding beyond Harry Potter, because look around at LeakyCon. You're not all just wearing wizard robes and house ties anymore. You've got sonic screwdrivers and bow ties and fezzes and warbler blazers and all sorts of costumes. I keep having to ask who you are because I don't even know anymore. LeakyCon is so excited to be using all these fandoms and stories to bring you together and let you be yourselves. So just like that, we are so excited to be using stories to help people and help all of us be heroes in our world.
Thank you, Martin. Guys, if you want to tweet, maybe I'm just trying to think of a hashtag. Hashtag Imagine Better. Just put that down. It's I'll be following that for questions and comments, etc. We'll try to get to questions at the end too.
I'm Hank. My brother and I make videos on YouTube. We started in 2007. After a year of doing that, almost a year, John and I, it felt like such a big deal, which is sort of weird considering how much bigger it's gotten since then, that it seemed like we needed to use the community that we had created, and also sort of the power that we felt like we had generated behind our content, to leverage it for something. So we created the Project for Awesome, which since 2007 has gone from being something that was like a bunch of people basically doing their best to mess with YouTube, to last year we raised over $400,000, but beyond that, the idea of the Project for Awesome has always been to have people go out and think about the things that matter to them the most, find the organizations that are working on those issues, understand those organizations, understand how they operate, and then create content promoting those organizations that those organizations can use, so that people can find out more about the great people in this world who are working hard, not because they want to make a bunch of money, but because they want to make the world a better place. And that has, the Project for Awesome is sort of our big initiative each year. But I think more deeply than that, what being, people who like our content, what being a nerd fighter is about is like wanting to understand the world, wanting to understand other people, and wanting to feel like we are all, sort of really internalizing the idea that we are all the same everywhere, and that there's nothing that, makes the structure that our world has inherent, and then we can work to make that structure more equitable, that we can work to understand problems so that we can solve those problems, and that it is worth gaining that understanding, even if the solution isn't immediately available, because solutions come from people. And that's hopefully, like, when I like, in my wildest dreams, what the legacy of Nerdfighteria will be, is just people who are intelligent, who think hard about problems, because thinking hard about problems is the only path to solutions.
Hi everyone, my name is Mark Oshiro. I do Mark Reads and Mark Watches. I do Mark Reads Harry Potter. So I am very interested in activism through education, and a lot of what I write about and what my community about is teaching other people how to critically engage in media, and understanding that that doesn't mean you hate the thing that you're critically engaging with. I have a very active community, and I try to be as inclusive with a lot of policy about slurs and how to treat one another. Yeah, but my big thing is all about teaching people how do you navigate a world once you learn that it's a lot more challenging and diverse than you may have been brought up to think it is. And so I do that specifically through fandoms and my writing, and while I'm discovering worlds like Harry Potter, I can then open up about things. I was at the LGBT meetup earlier yesterday, which was huge and amazing, and bless that woman who came out to her mom. That was I cried a lot. But I told a story about how Harry Potter specifically allowed me to come to terms with the fact that I'd been bullied by a counselor at school, and meeting Dolores Umbridge was the first time I ever came across an authority figure in a book that did something bad to a student. And that was very empowering to me, and that inspired me that maybe it's time for us to open up and talk about the difficult things in our lives and use fiction to educate other people about our experiences.
Hi everyone, I'm Pamela Gresham, and I, along with Heather Kirkpatrick, founded something called the Boxing Project. And our mission is to harness the power and passion of fans to reach equal representation for LGBT, female, minority actors, characters, and issues in the media. And right now we are starting with network television because we come out of the Glee fandom. It started a little while ago when a scene between the show's popular gay couple, Kurt and Blaine, where my claimers at. So they cut out a scene where Blaine was giving Kurt a ring box. Thus, it became known as the box scene. And through our campaign to have that scene see the light of day, we ended up raising $14,000 for charity to win the script that the scene was in. We mounted a live stream to deliver that scene to fans and also create a video telling people about the importance of Kurt and Blaine for LGBT representation on television. And that sort of amplified and spiraled into this larger conversation about a double standard that seemed to be emerging on the show between the hetero and homosexual couples. And that eventually got to Ryan Murphy, the show creator, who finally released the scene on YouTube. And if you haven't seen it, please Google it. It's the cutest thing you've ever seen in your entire life. So now what we're doing is branching out from Glee into really all of network television to get fans to use the power that we have as consumers to tell the networks and the show producers and the advertisers that yes, we do support equal representation. Yes, we will watch if there are people other than straight white males on your television show. And there should be, because heroes should really look like all of us. And so our vision is to one day grow to be able to counter conservative organizations like 1 Million Moms who are doing a lot to shut down progressive television. And we want to get those fan voices out there, and we're running around starting a new public awareness campaign. So if you have a television character that you see yourself in, or if there isn't anyone out there representing you right now, we want to hear that so that we can make the powers that be hear that. Thank you.
I'm up here. These are some of the most amazing people doing the most amazing things, and I'm just a big history nerd. But I'm Danica Johnson. And Hank is actually one of my bosses, so I have to say what he said. I work for John Green in Indianapolis, and obviously I work on Crash Course. Exception is? Thank you. Yeah, one of the things I'm most proud of is that the term montage is mine. So I'm also the art director on the Mental Plus show that we do. But with Crash Course, I roll the globe in. I'm the chalkboard artist. You see a pair of random lady hands? Those are mine. And I'm the associate producer, so I find a lot of the B-roll images that are in the episodes, and it's a very collaborative effort, so when we're in the studio doing Crash Course, it's all hands in. Everyone's putting in jokes, everyone's kind of revising. One of my favorite roles is as a female standards and practices consultant, which is very important. So yeah, I stay pretty busy with whatever I can, really, all the time. So yeah, I love being part of this community. I take it very seriously. I like being a gatekeeper more than anything. I like being a caretaker. I love nerd fighters. I love history nerds. They're my favorite. I'm extraordinarily nerdy, and so this conference so far has been unimaginable. It's my first LeakyCon. I'm in contact with. I'm one of most of you. It feels like home, so I'm really happy to be here. Thanks.
I oftentimes feel like we are all nerve cells, and we just need synapses to be spaces for us to come together, so that we can be nerve cells that is part of a larger being that is humanity. We have so many different fandoms. There are fandoms that are here. I imagine there are brown coats in the audience. There are other forms of fan activism that's here. And I think one of the things that needs to happen is for this thing that is a thing to become a thing. Right? Like, because it exists, but to many people outside of this room, it's very strange. It doesn't need to be strange anymore. Although strange is awesome. It's important for us to be coming together in these nerve cells, in this synapse, etc. At the end of every great, big, epic myth, Dumbledore's army brings together everybody. The Fellowship of the Ring brings together everybody. The Rebel Alliance brings together everybody. Imagine these different forces that are here at this table, that are here in this room, going to war against World Suck with the power of awesome. Harry Potter conference, and the Harry Potter Alliance obviously started as a Harry Potter based organization. It's right there in the name. Lauren, can you address that? Like, how is the Harry Potter Alliance transitioning around that? Because it seems like there's a parallel between what's going on between Harry Potter Alliance and LeakyCon.
Yeah, well, all of you were at the opening ceremonies last night, right? So these guys, really good. Lines in there, especially Dylan Saunders playing Sam, had that one meta line where he went on this speech of this seems like it could be a excuse for a multi-fandom, something, all blah blah blah. Everything he said there is also what the Harry Potter Alliance does. We are really moving in the same way as LeakyCon. It's not because we hate Harry Potter, we don't like Harry Potter anymore, obviously. We just like all the other fandoms as well now. I like to say that Harry Potter is like the Beatles of fandom. you know, you ask someone like their favorite band, and they're like, they name all their like new favorite bands, and they're like, oh yeah, and the Beatles. Yeah. Same way you go on Tumblr, you ask someone their fandom, and they're like, okay, Doctor Who, Supernatural, you know, and then oh, Harry Potter, of course. And Harry Potter doesn't even really get that much play on Tumblr because everyone's excited for the new ones. But we all well, not grew up with Harry Potter. I'm kind of young. Okay. A lot of people grew up with Harry Potter. But what Harry Potter did grow up with was social media. Social media was developing with a like parallel trajectory as the Harry Potter community developed. You know, there were other fandoms before Harry Potter, like Star Trek and Star Wars, but the internet as a social function did not exist yet. When Harry Potter was coming, we were on MySpace. The Harry Potter Alliance had our first bulletin on MySpace. That's how we started.
I don't know if we still have the password.
It's up there, and it's like not maintained, but yeah, I don't think we can get into it anymore. But yeah, so we were learning how to use social media as we were like growing as a fandom, and not only were we figuring out how to like be social about Harry Potter with each other and like starting Wizard Rock and everything cool like that, we were also analyzing the heck out of these books. And so we were learning probably more than we did in our English classes about how to analyze text and what stories mean and what are metaphors and how do we apply stories to our lives and think critically about things. What Hank was saying earlier about how like the solution is going to be critically thinking. And that's what we were learning as we were theorizing what's going to happen in Deathly Hallows. We were learning how to do that, and that's why I think Harry Potter fans are more apt to become fans of everything else and fans of stories and becoming these fandoms because stories mean so much to us in that way. You know, we learned how to really play with them and to do something from them and to like make change in the world. And so I think that's why the Harry Potter Alliance, as well as LeakyCon, and some other people who started in Harry Potter, like Wizard Rockers, now doing other music, we're all moving these other fandoms just because we simply are fans of them now too.
Yeah, there's people always say, and like when you say this, everybody goes woo, but I wish we all just sort of like nodded and like that the Harry Potter fandom is the best fandom. Because like you can't say that without everybody going, God! It's like it's like not even that exciting statement. Like it's just obviously true. And like the fact that John and I started because of Deathly Hallows and because of my song about Deathly Hallows, like with a big nerd like Harry Potter contingent to our fan base, that so heavily influenced like how we ended up creating content, and also and also like once they were there, it was like, oh, okay, this is our audience. Like these are the people, and just see that transfer to other projects I've worked on and to also other projects in the world was very exciting. And to turn that on to its like social or it's like justice and activism head, it's become clear to me that communities used to be localized. They used to be, your neighborhood. They would be your church. They would be your Rotary Club. And that's not how it's going to be anymore. And those organizations, those like local organizations, were good at bringing people together, doing interesting things for their community mostly, and also doing some interesting things beyond their community. But as those institutions have kind of started to dissolve a little bit because we're so plugged into the electronics and there are a lot of advantages to that lifestyle, that it could be said that we are at risk of losing some of that cohesion and some of the simplicity of organizing in that way to do good things for the world, because we have lost a lot of our location-based geographical cohesion. But to see this cohesion, it's almost more exciting because there's like so much more that you can do to spread values and to find communities of shared values rather than a community of shared, like the same street. A community of like a shared like set of beliefs, set of understanding of the world, instead of like values for how a person should be and how we should be. I think is in some ways even more powerful, and having that coming out of this and recognizing that and going after it is extremely exciting to me. And that's why I think the Harry Potter Alliance is so exciting, and why it makes so much sense to grow outside of just about Harry Potter. Because it's not really about Harry Potter. It's about who we are and about what we care about.
and I'm going to go to this side of the table and back to Anthony in a second, but while you're on the subject of this, Hank, I'm thinking, you know, I oftentimes feel like the taller something is, the more powerful it is. And which
I'm
is
pretty
why,
tall.
Yeah, really powerful. But like, if you ask a child,
Where the hell are you going?
if you ask a child, where is a cloud? They'll point to the sky. And the cloud that we are communicating in is very, very tall. It's taller than the tallest tower. It's taller than the tallest building. That's a network. And one of the things that you and John have created, and what the community of nerdfighters essentially created, is this thriving, wizarding world that exists, this thriving magical community of nerdfighters that exists in this network, in this cloud, and that suddenly then pops and apparates into places like LeakyCon or VidCon or bookstores with Nerdfighter notes, or on Esterday or Project Rawsome, etc. So one question I have is, when Harry enters the wizarding world, it's a time of peace, even though there still are R's, they still are doing those things. How do we take the energy, the brilliance? I was saying this to you last night. We have a video in our world of a little boy biting his British brother's finger. And it has over 400 million views. And if we can do that, we didn't really do that, but if we can do that, can't we make social justice viral? Can't we change narrative? So there's money and charity, which is essential and important. But can we go deeper? So my question is, how can we, and I don't know if there's an answer to this, I think it might just be a question. How can we fully leverage and maximize the ability of the Nerdfighters as this brilliant, magical community with the smartest people on the planet, potentially, to really end world suffering?
Yeah. That is a problem to think critically about. When you do activism, like the obvious most like the thing that everybody the easy thing is to give money, if that is a possibility for you. It's not very easy if you have none, but for lots of people it's very easy because lots of people in America have plenty of money. But it's much harder to say, how are we going to get 200,000 people who live in 200,000 different places, and have small communities, but there's no large way to get together because everybody lives in different places and nobody, if you're gonna have to spend $300 on a plane ticket, it's all the wash anyway. How do you organize that power into something that can affect change? And there are ways to do that. They're all very complicated, and we think about it all the time. That's the end of it. That's all. And we've done some things, but we want to do more, and I think that we could do a lot better.
I think that was a really Socratic answer.
I don't know what that means.
I think it was an answer that you just basically gave a brilliant answer, and then you reframed the question, saying, well, how do we do this?
Well, no, that was a very politician answer.
I don't think so, because I think it was very honest, and I think that this is an honest question we all have.
And politicians.
I think it was a question we all have to grapple with, which is, who here identifies as a nerdfighter? So, you guys are apparently pretty smart. Think about this. Wrestle with this question. This is not a one-word answer type of question. We are united here all over the world, a world that desperately needs the power of our awesome. How can we use it even better? Let's keep challenging ourselves. We should be celebrating how awesome we are, but we should also be acknowledging what a certain uncle said to a certain Peter: with great power. Jinx. So, moving over to, yes, Tamara.
I have an idea about how maybe we can harness our awesomeness for awesomeness. So a while back, I saw a TED Talk by a man whose last name is Seaver, I think that's how you pronounce it. He was talking about how you create movements. And he showed this video of like this field, and there was this dude out there, and he's like dancing around like a crazy person. And it's just him by himself, and everyone else is sort of sitting around looking like, who is this nut? But then the presenter said, like, yes, he's a lone nut at that moment with this crazy idea. But the minute that one person gets up and starts dancing around with him, now he's a leader because he has someone who's following him. And then it's not as risky to get involved because there are more people dancing around like crazy people, and maybe now it's not so nutty. And after about like 30 seconds, the third person and the fourth person, and suddenly there are 10 people, and suddenly everyone is out there dancing around like a lunatic because of one lone nut who wasn't afraid to stand up and just be themselves and like go forward with it. But the most important person there was the second person who said, I'm gonna join you because I believe in what you are doing. And so if we can find that one thing, right, that one person who's gonna stand up and be like, hey, I have this idea, I think this is really awesome. But what's most important is that second person, all of you in the room saying, I'm gonna help you out, because like the boxing project started with a post on Tumblr, right? And I got a text from Heather who was like, well, I'll give you $150 and we'll work on this. And like then we were just lone nuts together. And now there are like so many people, and the first 113 people who donated to us and made all of that possible, like without them, we would have just been lone nuts in our rooms, right? So if we can all like, I guess, tell ourselves, I'm going to be that person who's going to support that lone nut, or I'm going to be the crazy lone nut, then we can come together, and with all of our voices, we can make a difference.
To put it in a different framework, equality activism is something incredibly close to my heart. I think about Harvey Milk. I think about the idea of just familiarization. It's a passive-aggressive way, I think, to get the ball rolling is to just be who you are and phrase live out loud. Familiarization helps stunt fear. So, like you're saying, be the one crazy person dancing around and if people are familiar, they're less likely, ideally, to be haters. So, yeah, I say Harvey Milk every time.
I love that. And I really relate to the story Pamela just said. In the interest of time, I want to move to you guys, but I'm just going to say something that's really important. Shoot. Oh, darn it, there's all these people here, and I forgot. Harvey Milk, yes. We are past the point of the age of television where people are talking at us. So just to bring us back to Nerd Fighters, because that is a common thread here. When you're watching John and Hank's videos, that is not a passive act. Yes, you can write comments and be part of that milieu of comments. But if you actually care about getting rid of pennies, figure it out. Seriously, figure it out. Figure it out together. We have the tools. We have the wands. Every great wizard in history has started off as nothing more than we are now. And but it's not passive when John and Hank talk about something. Figuring to freak out. They're giving you all the tools. You have all the tools. There's only so much that this man can do. So,
I got time.
So it's like, we in building the Imagine Better Network, are trying to create more space, but there's only so much that we can do. End pennies in a way that's not just about John Green asking the president, but that's also about you figuring it out. Make memes, make stuff, learn how to make stuff, share it together, promote it together, replicate how the Project for Awesome replicates things. You can do this. It's not a passive act to be on the internet. Now, moving on to education, which is oftentimes thought of as a passive act, where students are supposed to learn stuff based on tests and all of that. What we're seeing here is what Mark and Danica are presenting. Crash course, Hank, John are presenting with Crash Course, what Mark is presenting with Mark Reads, is a different approach to education. It's incredible, it's remarkable, because can you both comment on that as to how you feel people are learning, and how you think that potentially could that create a revolution in learning?
Actually, to go off of that, because that you sort of bridged the thought I was going to say, when you said living out loud, that's something that was very important for me in my writing, was realizing I'm a queer brown dude. Maybe I should just be that and talk about that, because how many people don't have that, and don't have that person in their life who's able to be honest and talk about that. So for me, education, my education that I do is all about honesty. It's all about talking about the difficult things that I've done in my life or that have happened to me, because I know somewhere there's one person who has never had the chance to talk about this, and now all of a sudden someone is talking about, being bullied or, being gay. And that's the importance of education through my writing. It's like when you engage with fiction, and it's like you said, you go into this world, but it's our own world as well. And being able to pull that apart and talk about it, that's, for me, that's the education, the super nerdy part about it.
On Crash Course that I think is incredibly valuable and honestly unique when it comes to curriculum-based, I don't know, we're edutainment, but curriculum-based anything. John is really good, Raul as a writer is really good at presenting, particularly with world history, right now we're doing US history, but the world history series is so special because it takes a wider view of history. It's not just a American sort of perspective on, and we're not doing that, and we haven't, and I think that's valuable. I like letters. I read letters. I don't have a lot of time to read letters, but when I do, we get things feedback like people who are just appreciative that we do have this wider view. Like I get most often, or the ones that really hit me the most, are the ones that are like, I'm American, but I'm Muslim. And your explanation of this, or the way that you speak about it, and the respect, and the view that you bring to it, that's not just specifically American, it means everything, and makes me feel even more proud to be an American, to be respected as a Muslim. It's amazing. I think it's, like I said, it's something that I've never seen a series or whatever that takes that view that is not what you expect. And we all know U.S. history. I mean, and we all watch film, and film, I think, to some degree dictates how you think about those events, and most of the time it's not accurate at all. So I see this as kind of a palate cleanser. It takes you into this different view, but it also resets what you're trying to unlearn from what Mel Gibson taught you, or whatever, yeah, take it out of the mix. That's not it. It's entertainment, but yeah, and I don't know, I love that. I cherish it, and I think it's an amazing thing. I love Crash Course. I love it.
I love it too.
I want to ask one more question for you, Danica, which is around this question of, I feel that what you guys are doing is it's being incorporated into classrooms, people are relating to it, what Mark is doing, people are relating to, people are learning. Do you think that this could eventually, if we have enough people from the outside, that it could end up creeping into classrooms and help kind of expose the kind of fraudulent problems that our school system, the assumptions that our school system is based on, and start actually talking about learning and community? Yeah, I got a little preachy there, but...
I want it everywhere all the time. One of my favorite things, I love Tumblr, I'm really active on Tumblr. In my Tumblr inbox, honestly, is the thing that I think that has been most effective at emotionally tying me to the community. I get great questions, and I do enjoy Tumblr generally. But seeing all these pictures of classrooms, full classes, wearing Mongol shirts, and the excitement, the enthusiasm of being super crazy nerdy about history, I don't know if anything's better than that, and I want that everywhere. I want everyone to feel that enthusiasm because it's interesting.
Now, on that note, I do want to say about the Imagine Better Network that one of the things I'm doing right now is working with curriculum specialists to build a curriculum that's based off of popular culture so that students can actually focus on the things that they actually care about. and that those things can be connected to history. Those things can be connected to becoming the heroes that they've dreamt of being. And teaming up then with groups like Crash Course and Mark Reed's and all of that. So we've got social activism and we've got learning and education. All critically important. But I'm going to bring it back to Anthony, who to me is sort of the Dumbledore on here. I think, you know, I'm curious, I have so many questions for you. As an actor, and the role of the actor, and all of that stuff, but one question I have is, I think you've had the unique experience of spending time with fans, of the work that you're putting out, and the unique experience of seeing, you know, we've been talking, at least tangentially, about solving some of the world's biggest, most pressing problems, and about working on education. But something that I think is key to Rent, that's key to your work, is the emotional and spiritual component.
Well, I think, you know, things like the Supreme Court this week did some good things, right? Not the voting rights, no. They did some bad things, they did some good things. They did some good things. They didn't go as far as they could, but they did some good things. But I don't think it's crazy to suggest that a lot of the road that was paved for that was not just the many activists who, you know, done tireless work to do all sorts of things around marriage, but the fact that Ellen had a TV show back in the 90s, the fact that Will and Grace was a TV show, the fact that, you know, their characters on Grey's Anatomy, the fact that Rent existed, that people have been growing up inside of a culture in which these recognizable, embraceable characters and beings are part of their lives. And so, you know, the cultural shift almost always predates legal and political shifts, and the fact that, so I've always taken it very seriously that part of the opportunity that the arts have is to change the world. That's something that Jonathan Larson was very mindful of. So, you know, there's many, many different ways to skin these cats, right? And that's, I don't like to skin cats, but but in terms of like, how do we manifest? There's so many different ways to manifest, and if there are artists in this room, I would suggest keep writing things and making things that illustrate and reach hearts, because hearts, you know, arguments are important and need to be made, but, you know, hearts and minds can be changed very profoundly from artistic work. Anecdotal, but early experience. I remember a young woman wrote a letter to us in the cast of Rent saying she'd never met anyone with AIDS before seeing Rent. She felt like she knew them, and she was then going to volunteer for her local hospice. You know what I mean? So there are very real, tangible things that happen because of the arts. And obviously, Harry Potter has led you guys to do what you're doing, you know. So it's there, all those ways. The only other thing I would like to sort of suggest, you know, it's all well and good and wonderful that we're all here together, convening and sharing these things with one another, and that in your various communities, that you all share these things. The most important thing, though, is to go outside of that community and make noise to the people in power. You know, it's really, you know, to become a kind of echo chamber, and it feels really good to, you know, find like-minded people and to share, you know, and to rail against things with each other. And sometimes you do need to vent and you need to get that out, but it's just as important. You know, a couple years ago I was at this event in New Jersey. There was a transgender girl who was, I think, 11 or 10, like super young, who petitioned. She was forced out of the local girls' soccer club, and then she petitioned to be the governing body, the national governing body of kids soccer, to be allowed to play girls soccer. And now she started a foundation, and now like there's more transgendered kids who are, you know, but that's because she didn't take it lying down, and she went to the powers and she made noise and she did the thing, you know. And she had lots of support doing that, but it's going to it's like pressing the button, making the buzz sound until they want you to shut up sometimes. You have to, you know, that's one of the things that Larry Kramer mentioned before. So, you know, create these things together, but then go out and make it happen, you know, and don't just feel good about being an enlightened person, you know, actually try to make some noise.
It's really interesting because if you look at the Hogwarts houses, Hufflepuff activism is beautiful. It's very much about...
I'm Hufflepuff.
Building a community of inclusivity, charity, volunteer work. You have Ravenclaw, building a community of enlightenment and understanding and research. Slytherin is building communities where you're pushing at the power in the most manipulative and interesting ways, probably. And I'm a huge fan of Slytherin activism, I gotta say. That's maybe the most important in some ways. And then Gryffindor is very much connected, obviously, to Slytherin activism, which is being brave and being willing to say, sorry, no, we're not going to take this SHIT anymore. You know? So, circling back to Hank.
Who is a Slytherin?
Who is a Slytherin? He claims to be, but
I was sorted Slytherin.
what?
Last year you were Slytherin!
You know,
There's some debate.
I always thought I was straight, and then Pottermore told me I was gay. What house is Nerdfighteria in? House of Awesome. Okay. I think the question I have is that we have the thriving community, we have the Hufflepuff stuff really brilliantly covered. Clearly, you've got the Ravenclaw stuff moving.
As far as the Ravenclaw stuff, I do want to say something, which is that, you know, there's activism, and then there's work. And, you know, in our lives, we're all going to have to do work. And we will have jobs, and we will go to school and train for them, and we will hate our jobs sometimes, and sometimes we will get wonderful jobs. But what I've always, like, I realized this fairly recently, when I was hanging out with a bunch of aerospace scientists in a hangar.
As one does.
And they were all dudes, and I was like, what? So like, I'm just like gonna like, what's going on here? Like when you like, we were talking about like, how do you get more equity in you know the sciences? And what I kept hearing was, you know, you got to talk about other great female scientists, and there are lots of great female scientists, but the fact that there were great male scientists isn't what got those guys into rocket ships. It was that rocket ships go boom, roar, and pierce the, you know, the vagina of the sky. It's a man thing. It's like, it's gonna like, oh, we're gonna put all the power we can get into a fucking palace. We didn't talk about the fact that, like, engineering saves lives. Like, that's, like, desalinization plants save lives. They make it so that kids don't die. Like, that's the engineering conversation that you can have, and that's not the engineering conversation that we've had for the last, since there was engineering. And like, so that to me, like, just thinking about, like, how the work, like the impact that your work can have when you're making these decisions is very important to me. And people would always ask me, what's the, when I you know was full-time eco-geek, what's the thing, the one thing that I can do that's going to make the world better fastest? And like the actual answer to that question is keep your house slightly cooler in the winter and slightly warmer in the summer. But really the answer is, you need to be working on the problem. You need to be, like, not in politics, you know, like, yes, in politics. Like, you need to be working, like, politically, you need to be working on it, like, actual solving problems. And so, like, if, like, you know, you want to know, like, how to save, like, fix the environment, become an engineer, become a scientist. Like, that's the thing to do. And, you know, also write great things about it, be a journalist. Like, that's the path I took. I freaking got a biochemistry degree, and then I ended up being an activist. Like, I totally didn't, like, take my own advice there. But yeah.
And I love your answer, but what about that Gryffindor thing that Anthony just said about railing against power?
No, I mean, it's all,
Can nerdfighters do that?
Can we rail against power? I think the Gryffindor thing really is the moment when I look at it like something I might want to talk about, and I think to myself, but what is this going to do? Like, how are like my fans' parents going to feel about this? Like, what about the 25% of nerdfighters that are Republicans? Like, can I have this conversation in a way that doesn't belittle or demean or alienate people who I actually care about and who care about me? And finding the courage to stand up to that and to really work for it because of how hard it can be.
Brother Hank is a Hufflepuff, man. That was Hufflepuff, man. I mean, that's a beautiful one. What did you do? I just called you Brother Hank.
There you go.
That was weird. I don't know how that happened.
I didn't notice.
Yeah. That's a great answer. And
I feel like it was a long answer, sorry.
No, it was great. It was terrific. We have to. The sad thing is that the model we're talking about is participatory, but the time is keeping us from making this a participatory event where people can ask questions and answers. So I, for one, am going to be outside of the hallway after the end, and anyone can come up to me. These folks all have very busy schedules, so it's up to them to figure out if they can address these questions.
I have to do a signing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. And Anthony, given that you've been kind of a... Damn, what's my question? I had a question. After Jonathan Larson died, so real fast, a lot of us have Harry Potter as our first experience. For me, it's Rent. As a personal anecdote, I moved to Boston in 2002 after college. Anthony was at a play outside. I walked up to him and I was trembling, and I told him this story about how I thought the power of story and fans could change the world. And now I'm moving from Boston, and it's 11 years later or something, and he's on this panel with me, and this is very meta and crazy and very weird. But you've been the voice for Jonathan Larson's vision. What do you think Jonathan Larson would say, and I don't think you can speak for Jonathan Larson, obviously, about this community and the ability of challenging power while maintaining community and valuing abnormality?
Well, what I know is that Jonathan Larson was a straight white man who was HIV negative, who saw what was happening around him, and was moved to do something about it, and the avenue by which he had to do it was to write something beautiful. And he did that, and he really meant to change the world. And he, so part of the reason I guess I can share the story is he had a huge dream. Like, he thought on a big scale, and he was just this little guy who lived in a tiny walk-up apartment in New York, and he didn't have a lot of evidence proving that was possible, and he did it anyway. And he really did do it, and he really did change the world. And it's not just because he died, contrary to some, cynical belief. So, I think that he would be incredibly honored, and I think that he would still be trying to write. He was always very engaged, and I'm sure he'd be railing against, whatever else there was railing against. But he did it in a way that was generous of spirit, and inclusive, and very committed, and there was a kind of anger in Rent too, but it was coming from a place of the possibility of building community. The question, what do you do in the face of crisis? These people build a community. And how do you measure life and love? These are the sort of central tenets of that. And that changed the world. That changed people's lives. And I can only say that because that's what people have said to me over the last 19 years.
And that's what we're going to continue doing. What each of us is doing on this panel. We're going to be doing with the Imagine Better Network. We're going to be doing with LeakyCon. All of us together. The weapon we have is love. DFTBA. No Day But Today. Hank, I will see you at the National Charity Ball. And everyone, we are the weapon. We are the weapon. Look to your neighbor. We're the ones that are going to make that change through our art, through our education, and through our activism. Thank you all so much.